Okay. Hi, guys.
Hi.
We are. You know, there's one word for us, and that is slick. We are slick.
I'm glad nobody was doing anything dirty whenever that
Right?
comes. Listen, it's a live show. We got some kinks we're trying to work out. It's all good.
Let's say
I'm
after
glad
that
I wasn't
start.
readjusting the girls right
No
then. It was
shit or something. You know that moment like when your mom walks in on you or something like that and you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, you're like, hi.
Usually right before I'm like wiping my nose and getting a sip of soda, and I was just about to do this, and I'm like, oh, we're on. Okay.
We're like,
you
we'll
guys.
just go ahead and play that
Welcome to
again.
Everything Vaguely
Yeah.
Paranormal.
After that false start, good evening and welcome to Everything Vaguely Paranormal. I am Ryan Roberts. These are my partners in the paranormal, Blake Smith and Shelly Pruitt. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing
Better
great.
now.
Now that we had a
Let's
little
pretend like
giggle.
that didn't happen. And just,
I don't think we can. We don't lie to our own.
we're
No.
doing great. Yeah.
No, fuck that shit. Let's leave that shit in there. It's going to make the
Just let
final
it
cut.
Absolutely.
Just let it sit there like a big old turd in a punch bowl.
Punch bowl.
Just let it float.
Oh my God, how funny. Listen, you have some shit happen when you have a live show. It's just the way that
Absolutely.
it goes, okay? We're working out the kinks. We'll get there. It's all good.
Sometimes your technology fails you and, and things like that happen.
Well, when you're
At
out in the when you're out in the middle of absolutely effing nowhere and your internet effing sucks. We won't name company names, but you know, you have little hiccups every now and then. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, and my ring light was possessed about 5 minutes before we went on, and it went out. And then I'm like, I plugged it back in. It looks good. It went out again. I'm like, okay, F you. I'm getting something else.
yeah.
You know?
So if Shelly goes dark at all, just roll with
You
it.
didn't see nothing.
Absolutely.
She'll be back. She'll be back.
Maybe.
Anyways.
I might just go to hell with it and go do something else.
Well.
Yo, I'm excited for tonight because it's just I'm feeling it. False start,
Absolutely.
funny moments. It's all good. Ryan, what you got for us? Come on.
So speaking of hell, tonight we're going to be talking about the Jersey Devil.
It's a great segue.
And so do you guys know much about the Jersey Devil? Do you have any prior knowledge of the cryptid and or folklore?
I know enough to get into trouble and that I wouldn't want to cross it in the forest. I know that much. Can guarantee you that.
Well, tonight we're going to get into exactly what it might be and some of the accounts of people who have seen it. But before we get into that, we kind of have to get into where it takes place.
It's a snoofalupicus, right?
Yes, Snoofalufalupicus. But so we have to get into where it takes place. And where it does take place is in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Now, the Pine Barrens of New Jersey are a thick and desolate pine forest in South Jersey that make up about 1/5 of the landmass of southern New Jersey, and it covers about 1,700 square miles, and it's made up of these stunted pines for as far as the eyes can see. And while there are few people that live out in this pine forest, it is very sparsely populated. Even today, there are few people that live out there in this wooded wasteland. And the people that live out there were called pinies or pine rats. What y'all laughing at?
You just keep reading your notes. Just keep looking down, man.
Pine rats.
So they were called pinies or pine rats, and they did not have the easiest time trying to live amongst the pines. Because the Pine Barrens are called the Pine Barrens for a reason. The soil is absolutely barren, and it's not a good place to farm or a good place to raise a family. Now, it was in this desolate conditions that the Leeds family found themselves in back in the 1700s. trying to farm the barren soil and trying to just get by and exist out in this pine forest.
Fighting off the pine rats.
Right, off the pine rats. So now we know the setting of the legend, and now we're going to get into the legend. And what the hell are you? You eating on
All right,
pine
guys.
rats over
All
there?
right, guys. We got a sense of professionalism and decorum here because we're so professional at all times. Shelly has lost her shit.
I think she has. I think she's broken somehow.
I think she is broken. We don't know why.
I'm just imagining people running for the pine rats. Ignore me. I'll be fine in a minute.
You about lost it.
All right, Shelly.
I'm good. I just have this vision of these pine rats and these 1700s people dodging them. That's all.
God.
Not a
We're
good
gonna
place to live.
make it. We're gonna make it
It's
tonight.
just gonna
guys.
happen.
We're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. I'm gonna mute your goddamn mic, Shelly. Go ahead, Ryan.
All right. I said, so now that we know the setting for the legend and just how hard it was for them to live out in the Pine Barrens, we can get into the infamous legend of the devil itself. So now Mother Leeds, or Deborah Leeds, lived in an area called Leeds Point at the mouth of the Delaware River, deep in the Pine Barrens. Now, she was about 50 years old, and she was a Quaker woman. And while she was a woman of faith, many in the area believed she was a witch. There were rumors that she had dabbled in the darker arts. And what the fuck are you with that? So they believed that she had dabbled in the darker arts, and plus she had given birth to 12 perfectly healthy children.
Jesus
and had never had
Christ.
a miscarriage or a deformed child in colonial America.
Oh, good
You know,
God.
which was, like I said, which was very rare back then. And it was commonplace in early colonial America for tragedy to strike in early childbirth. So because she had had that many kids and nothing had happened to them, people were like, oh, she must be consorting with the devil or doing some kind of black magic in order to be able to do this. So needless to say, people were a bit wary of Deborah Leeds. Now, Deborah Leeds and her family lived outside of town in the Pine Barrens. And like I said previously, this is a very hard existence. She and her husband and her children didn't have much. And like many people, they lived an agrarian lifestyle. They were growing and farming what they could out in the infertile soil of the Pine Barrens. But the Leeds and their 12 children were able to get by on a meager existence. However, Deborah would soon get news that threatened to shatter that existence because Deborah soon found out that she was pregnant with her 13th child. She was getting busy out there.
She signed the devil's book. She has signed the devil's book.
Now, Deborah was none too pleased with this news. I mean, she already had enough trouble raising her current brood. She didn't want to add another mouth to feed. And she didn't really, she didn't want to add another mouth out to her failing homestead because they were just getting by as it was. So in frustration, she threw her head back and yelled at the sky, I am tired of children. Let this one be a devil. And soon thereafter, word got out and about around town just what Deborah had bellowed to the sky. The people in the area feared just what the occult-loving Quaker may birth, and soon they would find out.
Okay, hold on. I got a question for you real quick, because how closely are we related to, let's say, the Salem witch trials at this time?
This is like the early 1700s. What Salem witch trials happened in
1692. So we're actually on the heels.
Like 1701, early 1700s.
So she really did.
Was still
oh yeah,
very prevalent.
Oh, sorry, no,
oh,
sorry,
yeah.
1731, 1735 area.
Okay. So
we'll go back to 1701 later.
We're still within the generation, so to speak, of the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
So she really did sign the devil's book. Damn it.
Yeah, according to a lot of people in the area.
Signed the devil's book. 13 children and nothing wrong with her. Or the
12 children with nothing.
12.
wrong.
Okay,
She's
12.
pregnant with
12.
12
Yeah,
children,
she's 12 with good God.
But the
That's a lot of
13th
damn
child
kids.
would come later on that year. And on a dark and stormy night in 1735, she birthed what would be called the Jersey Devil. So the mood in the birthing room was very tense because Mrs. Leeds was flanked on all sides by several older women from the Leeds Point community, all acting as midwives and waiting with bated breath to see just what she was going to give birth to. And these older women were aware of what Mrs. Leeds had exclaimed to the sky earlier that year, and they also knew that she dabbled in witchcraft. So they were a little tense. But they tended to her nonetheless and helped her deliver her child. And much to everyone's relief, when she birthed a healthy little boy, they wrapped him up and gave him to his mom, and his mom kind of doted over the new little boy, and everyone was happy because she hadn't given birth to something that they thought she was going to give birth to. So the joy and the adulation, though, soon changed into absolute terror because the baby's torso began to writhe and elongated into a snake-like shape. Its feet gnarled and turned into hooves. Its face turned into that of a horse, and bat wings sprouted from its back. It stood up on its hind legs and grew to the size of a full-grown man. And it sprouted a forked tail at the base of its spine and swung it with great force, striking everyone in the room, including the mother that had cursed it so. It let out an earth-rattling scream and crawled towards the fireplace. Now, in that fireplace, there was a massive stoking fire. But it didn't seem to faze the beast as it crawled into the fireplace and flew up the chimney and out into the night, thus beginning one of the most prolific legends and cryptids in U.S. history. And ever since then, people have encountered a strange being in the Pine Barrens that defies all logic and explanation.
So she birthed this thing out her hoo-ha.
Yeah.
And
it was a regular kid at first, but then it turned into whatever that is. That's the legend.
That's the clinical term, by the way, hoo-ha.
Now, Ryan, didn't it escape up the chimney?
Yeah, that's what I said. Like it crawled up the chimney and flew out into the night.
And flew out into the night,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it crawled through fire to get there, according to the legend.
Before we go for it, because I wanted to. So is it just rumored that she dabbled with witchcraft, or?
Yeah, it was rumored. I couldn't find like any hard evidence that she had not, because like I said, this is also just the legend. So we don't know much about her. We just know that this is the legend of what happened.
I was gonna say sorry, because I'm like knee deep in the Salem witch trials right now. Breaking news. There might be a miniseries coming up. I'm like knee deep in the Salem witch trials right now. So like I'm kind of like, this is actually kind of fascinating right now, that I'm just like, I'm tying a lot of shit together.
As we go forward, you'll kind of see a lot of parallels to what's going on with what you're researching. It's pretty interesting. Huh. So, well, since this thing has gone out into the wilderness, people throughout history have encountered this thing ever since, the legendary Leeds Devil left Leeds Point. And one of these people was Commodore Stephen Decatur. In 1819, at the urging of President James Monroe, Commodore Decatur went into the Pine Barrens to check out the cannonball production for the U.S. Army. They had started producing cannonballs at Hanover Mill Works. It was deep in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. Now, by this point in history, many industrial businesses had moved into the Barrens and made use of the massive sprawling land area because it had poor soil and nobody was going to farm it. Why not use it for something else? So the commander was supposed to ride out there and inspect the quality of the cannonballs that were being made out there at the mill works. And while he was riding through the Pine Barrens around the mill works, the Commodore saw a creature that matched the description of the devil from the Leeds legend. He couldn't believe what he was seeing with his own two eyes. A legendary beast from the pits of hell stood right in front of him. And he did what any respected Commodore of his day, with access to massive firepower, would do. He ordered one of his cannons to be loaded so he could shoot a live round at it.
Hell yeah, I like this guy. Smart, like, motherfucker, I'm gonna take you out.
Yeah, why not?
Shoot it.
Shoot it.
Yeah, shoot him, boy. Shoot him, Troy. Shoot him. So he aimed his cannon and delivered a mighty cannon blast right to the creature. But much to his chagrin, it didn't even faze it. The creature just retreated back into the woods as if nothing happened. And Commodore Decatur was left scratching his head like, what the hell did just happen here? I don't know what the hell we even saw. So, you got a question?
No, I just had a comment. Do you think that like maybe the Jersey Devil, the Leeds Devil, like, tries to go out and make friends, and then he gets hit with a cannonball, and he goes back to his mom, and he's like, well, it's just another Wednesday,
like Frankenstein. friend.
I was just curious, just a random thought that went through my head.
Nobody understands me.
Exactly. Maybe he's just a misunderstood juvenile that needs love and tender care.
Give me a hug. So shortly after the Commodore's encounter, the Jersey Devil would again cross paths with history. Joseph Bonaparte, former king of Spain and brother to Napoleon Bonaparte, had immigrated to the U.S. in 1817 when things kind of went south for him and his family in Europe. And after living for a while in Philly, he settled at a large estate called Breeze Point in Bordentown, New Jersey. Now, Joseph was well-liked. He was friendly and stately and well-connected with prominent political figures of the day. And he was not one to tell tall tales. But one day, he would encounter something that seemed like it was right out of a tall tale. One day, he was in the woods hunting by himself, not far from his estate, as he was known to do, because he enjoyed the tranquility and the peacefulness of the wilderness, and he liked to be out there by himself and immerse himself in like the quietness of the woods. And it wasn't long until Joseph spotted a set of strange tracks. Now, while he was an avid hunter, he did not recognize the animal tracks that were being made, so he followed them deep into the woods, and then he heard a noise. It was a weird hissing sound that he had never heard. And not only had he never heard that noise before, but it was coming from right behind him.
Oh, fuck that.
So Joseph wheeled around and came face to face with something that he wished he hadn't seen. It was the visage of the devil himself. It had a long neck, legs like a crane with hooves for feet, stumpy arms, and a horse-like face. Joseph stood there frozen in fear because he couldn't believe what he was staring at. And both he and the creature locked gazes and stood there for a few minutes just looking at each other, neither of them moving a muscle, until the devil hissed at Joseph and then flew away. Now, Joseph didn't want to stand around and waste any time just in case the creature came back. So he bolted home and got the hell out of Dodge. And he ran up. As soon as he ran home, he went and found some of his friends in the local area and told his friends exactly about what had happened. He regaled them with his strange encounter that he had had out in the woods. Joseph had seen the Jersey Devil, and he didn't know it because his friends all turned white and told him exactly what he had saw and were amazed that he had lived to tell the tale and come tell them about it. So he lived for many, many years after that, realizing that he had seen the Jersey Devil. But the rest of the time he was in New Jersey, he never saw it again. He only saw it that one time.
I mean, how sure was he that it was the Jersey Devil? Because sometimes I do that to people whenever I meet them and I don't like them. I'm just like, hey, I'm Blake. You know, just...
I don't think you have a forked tail and a horse face.
I probably don't. I mean, to some people, I bet I do. I mean,
you might at some point. But the point is he never forgot about what he saw. And after Joseph's sighting of the creature, you know, for a time, it was only spotted sparsely, usually some unlucky soul who had wandered into the Pine Barrens late at night and came face to face with whatever was out there. But in 1909, things would be different because the devil would expand its domain and terrorize nearby cities in what would be called the Phenomenal Week. So the Phenomenal Week lasted from January 16th to January the 23rd, 1909. And during that week, there were a rash of unbelievable Jersey Devil sightings throughout the Delaware Valley. Thousands of people saw something that they couldn't explain, and they either encountered the creature or they saw evidence of it, namely by its strange footprints in the snow and tracks around the area. Now, the first of these sightings occurred in the wee hours of January the 17th. A man named Thack Rosins, yes, that is his name, of Woodbury, New Jersey. Old Thack.
Old Thack.
Of Woodbury, New Jersey, was the first to observe something strange that week. Now, Old Thack was leaving the Woodbury Hotel that night, and when he heard a strange hissing noise, just like what Joseph had heard in the woods so many years before. When he turned around, he saw a white figure fly across the street, and contained within that figure were two white glowing spots that he perceived to be the eyes of whatever this thing was. He then said that the creature disappeared, moving very fast in a puff of white smoke, and just got out of the area. And while that was the end of Thack's encounter, the devil was not done that night. Because across the Delaware River in Bristol, Pennsylvania, John McCowan woke up at about 2 a.m. He heard his baby girl crying in the other room, so he went to check on her. But outside of his house, he heard the most peculiar noise that he couldn't explain. He said it was like a loud scratching noise, like a record being placed on a phonograph. John didn't know what was making the noise, so he looked out his window, and what he saw was a large creature by the canal on his property. And whatever it was, it looked like some sort of like an eagle and hopped along the footpath. John, not knowing what it was, calmed his daughter down and thought it was better he just go back to bed and not interfere. He was like, I don't care. I'm going to go back to bed.
I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I'm going back to bed.
He was like,
that's my kind of guy. Deuces.
Now, shortly after John McCowan's encounter, the devil was spotted again by a local patrolman. And Officer James Sackville was out and about making his rounds that night. But suddenly, several nearby dogs began barking intensely. So Officer Sackville turned around to go see what all the commotion was about. And when he did, what he witnessed terrified him. He was face to face with a winged beast that hopped like a bird. But it had the feathers of the features of an animal that he had never seen before. And it let out a horrible scream, and Officer Sackville mustered up all the bravery in his body and decided he was going to charge this thing. So he charged right at the grotesque monster in front of him. But the creature hopped away from him, and so he did the only thing he knew to do, and he drew his service revolver and shot directly at the creature. But the bullets did absolutely nothing, and the creature flew low to the ground towards him and then shot upwards and out of sight.
I'm just having this really weird vision in my brain of like this sergeant or dude like running down the trail after this thing, and it's like, no, you can't catch me.
No, you're not going to catch me today. Now, about the time of Sackville's encounter, local postmaster E.W. Minister awoke in his bed. He sat up from a dead sleep because he heard an undefinable noise outside of his house, a noise he said that almost sounded supernatural. He walked over to his window and looked in the direction of the noise, and much to his surprise, he saw a creature flying over the Delaware River. It had a ram's head with curled horns and long, thin wings with short legs, with the front legs being shorter than the back legs, and it was glowing like a firefly as it flew across the river. It let out a shrill noise that ended in a low, hoarse tone and flew away until it was out of sight. And Minister wondered what the hell he had just seen. And there was no explanation for what he had just seen. But the fact was that night, 2 different government officials saw something that they could not explain in the same area. These weren't just, your run-of-the-mill people. These were respected government officials in the town. You had the police officer and you had the postmaster who both saw this happen that night. So,
What the fuck?
I don't know what that is. Is that one of the newer pictures that someone had?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, someone claimed to have photographed the Jersey Devil, and that's a newer photo.
Oh, that's looks kind of like a mixture between a goat being launched across a yard, a horrible Halloween prop.
Looks like a flying kangaroo to me.
That's what a lot of people actually said. A lot of people said that it looked like kangaroo-like almost when they saw it, but. On Monday the 18th, the next day, many people in the area saw a lot of strange tracks on their property. Tracks that they had never seen before, and many people reported these peculiar tracks in freshly fallen snow. And they seemed to defy all explanation because they would skip from rooftop to rooftop, and then they would go across fields and over fences, and they would appear for a few yards, but then they would abruptly stop. But the strange thing about these tracks is that dogs refused to go near them. They didn't want to track whatever the hell it was. And clearly, the people of the Delaware Valley had something strange on their hands. So the next day, on Tuesday the 19th, January 19th, the devil he awakened the Evans family in Gloucester, New Jersey. At about 2:30 a.m., Nelson Evans and his wife heard a strange noise outside of their home. They looked out their window and observed the devil for about 10 minutes, walking back and forth on the roof of their shed. They said it had a head like a collie with the face of a horse, with a long neck and wings about 2 feet long. It stood on its hind legs, which were crane-like, with horse hooves at the end. And after they listened to it clamoring on the roof for about 10 minutes, Mr. Evans decided he had had enough of whatever the hell it was. He got up, all the bravery in his body, and went up to the window and opened up the window and stuck his head out and yelled, "Shoo!" at the beast to get off of the shed roof. Just hoping it would work.
I was going to say,
get on. Get out of here.
In Southern, that is you run out on the back porch and holler, yeah.
Now, they just hoped that it would work. But the devil turned its head towards them and barked and then flew off into the night.
Wait, now
it barks?
Yeah, now it barks, apparently. So that was the end of the encounters for Tuesday. But Wednesday, the 20th.
Whoa, Tuesday is busy.
Oh yeah, this whole week, this thing is busy, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of accounts. So these are just a few that I was able to pull. So early that Wednesday morning, George Snyder was out fishing. He was enjoying the quiet and stillness of being outdoors. But that would soon be shattered when he looked up and he saw a creature across the river, and the creature was something right out of his nightmares. What he saw standing on the other side of the river made his blood run cold. It was nothing like anything else he had ever witnessed. It was 3 feet tall with long black hair, and it had arms and hands like a monkey, with the face of a dog, with split hooves and a tail about a foot long. So George sees this thing and he decides to pack it in. He's done fishing. He goes on home.
Wait a minute. Now, this description of this monster has changed with every single sighting. Now it's got long dark hair and it's got arms like a monkey.
This one almost sounds like a Bigfoot. I mean, minus the tail and the hoofs, obviously, but
it does a little bit. And I think there are some similarities that the Jersey Devil and Bigfoot kind of share. Because some people did report seeing long, stringy hair on whatever this entity was that they saw. I don't think they're talking
about the same creature. One of them is like has hooves and crane legs and the head of a goat. One of them has the face that looks like a collie, but a long head and a long neck. One has dark hair. One has monkey arms. I think they're not talking about the same creature. It doesn't sound like it. I mean, that if it's just one creature and there's only one, it should have a consistent look to everyone who sees it. So far, we've had 3 different descriptions.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that 100%. But later on, I think I have a reason as to why there's so many different descriptions of what people are seeing.
If it has little tiny short arms and bat wings on one of them, and monkey arms and hooves and a horse head or ram's head on another, it's not the same animal. A rabbit and a horse are 2 very different things, you know. So this one's only 3 feet tall that the fisherman sees. The other one's reporting that it's big. So sounds like different creatures, unless that thing just multiplied, you know.
Or unless Mrs. Leeds signed the devil's book again.
To change the appearance of her son.
She's like, you know what? 12 is too many. Let's go down to 11. And then a year later, she's like, fuck it. 10 sounds good. That's a round, even number. Why not?
She's having lots of demon babies.
But I do like George's reaction. He's like, I'm done fishing. Time to go home. I'm not sticking around for this thing. So the next day, that Thursday, the 21st, the devil decided to visit the big city. He made a foray into Philadelphia and scared the wits out of a Mrs. J.H. White. At around 4 p.m. that afternoon, Mrs. White was going to check her clothesline, and she was descending the stairs in her backyard with a bag of laundry when she noticed something animal-like in her backyard. But it didn't match the description of any animal she had ever seen. So determined to see what it was, she moved forward, and as she did, it stood up. She had greatly underestimated the size of this creature. As it stood up, it measured to be about 6 foot tall and towered over Mrs. White. It was about that time that she noticed its skin was scaly like an alligator's. And with that, the creature stood up on its hind legs and spewed flames out of its mouth.
Now it's a dragon.
Mrs. White was so utterly terrified that she screamed with every ounce of strength in her body. She screamed so hard that her body shook and she fainted. Now, Mr. White inside heard all the commotion in his backyard. So he jumped up and sprinted out the back door. As he burst through the door, he found his wife unconscious laying on the ground with a giant alligator-like beast spewing fire in his backyard. So he did the only thing that he could do, and he grabbed some of the clothes from the laundry basket and ran towards this creature, swinging the clothes wildly at it to try to get it to leave and leave him alone, leave his wife alone.
I like how Ryan leads into every story like that, how they get ready. He did the only thing that he could do. Like, he crosses this fucking monster every single day. Like, oh, it's just Billy the goat. Just get on out of here, shoot you know, and chase him with some clothes.
He never, like, he didn't have anything. I mean, I guess he was like, what do I use for a weapon here? I got it, clothes.
How about the basket? How about
my wife's bra?
The clothesline? I mean, how about you take off your belt? I mean, you got a better shot with that to beat it off with than here. Let me use my wife's underwear. What? It's like he was trying to put out the flames. I get it. Stop, drop, and roll and smother the flames, but that ain't gonna do nothing if that alligator thing bites you. That's ridiculous. Go ahead with your fabulous story.
So the monster hopped the fence, running away from Mr. White,
So this
And
alligator can jump now.
It jumped the fence and ran down the alley, still spewing fire. And Mr. White watched it run down the alley, and after he was sure it was gone, he called the family doctor for his wife. The doctor came and had to work on Mrs. White for about an hour to revive her and return her to her previous state. Clearly, she had seen something that shook her to her very core. Now, after this monster flees the White's backyard, a few streets over in the middle of downtown Philadelphia, a man driving a car almost hit something, and what he almost hit, he describes exactly what the Whites saw. So, what the hell is this? Is this an entirely different creature altogether? What's going on?
Sounds like 3 different creatures right now to me.
Sounds like
Whatever the creature was, it returned to its home state that evening, back into Camden, New Jersey. At about 7 o'clock that evening, Mrs. Mary Sorbinski let her dog out. She heard a ruckus outside and went to check it out. And just before she did, she wanted to see what was going on, but she grabbed a broom just in case she needed it to fight something off out in the yard. And so when she opens the back door and goes outside, she sees her dog in the grips of a hideous creature. And Mrs. Sorbinski acted fast and slapped the beast with her broom. And it let her dog go and let out a god-awful noise. And she said it was somewhere between the hooting of an owl and the growl of a hyena. It flew towards Mrs. Sorbinski and at the last moment veered off and flew away. After
don't mess with an old woman with a broom.
Whoa. Hold on. What? This is in the 1900s now?
Yes.
How the fuck does she know what a hyena sounds like?
I was about to say the same thing. How does she know what a hyena
I assume they had zoos. I assume they still had zoos, and she could have went to the zoo and found out what a hyena sounded like.
I guess. I don't know. I got real confused by that.
I mean, she does live in Philadelphia. Well, she lives in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that.
So maybe there was a Camden Zoo, and she had figured that out. But that's what she says.
What an odd descriptive, though, for like that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, oh, it sounded like either what did you say? It's an owl. An owl,
like.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or the growl of a hyena.
Mm-hmm.
I would be more apt to believe if she said the growl of a lion. She could probably at some point. But a hyena, I mean, that's very. A hyena has that high pitch.
Yeah. That
sound.
Yeah.
We're in 2023, and I don't even think I could imitate a hyena sound.
It's got a higher pitch.
It's like
whoop,
more like
a yell,
something like that.
Like
it's kind of like like they have like a high pitch like chortle sound.
You're just trying to get right.
I knew what it sounded like. I just wanted to hear y'all make the noise. Go ahead.
That's why I pulled up.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
So it flew towards Mrs. Sorbinski, but at the last moment veered off and flew away. After it left, she picked up her injured dog, and the poor thing had a piece of flesh ripped from its side. Mrs. Sorbinski screamed in anguish for her hurt little doggie, and her neighbors heard her cries and rushed over to check on her. Finding her in hysterics, they summoned the police. When suddenly from a nearby hill, they heard the creature shriek. So 2 of the policemen at the scene ran in the direction of the sound. The 2 officers spotted the dastardly creature and pulled their service revolvers. They fired at the creature, hoping to end its reign of terror once and for all. But much to their surprise, the bullet seemed to have no effect, and the creature spread its wings and flew off into the night.
I mean, we should know this from the early 1700s when a cannonball was fired at it and nothing happened. Like, you don't think that didn't make
bulletproof?
Like that didn't make the lore and legend somehow? I mean, come on! I fired ye cannonball at it, and ye cannonball did not a damn thing.
So by that Friday, the creature had caused such a great stir in the Delaware River Valley. It had struck fear into the hearts of the residences, and people had read about the encounters with the beast in the newspapers and heard from neighbors about encounters with the beast. So the whole area was whipped up into a frenzy, and they were afraid to leave their houses in fear that they too may encounter a demon from the depths of hell. So many people didn't leave their houses that the mills in Gloucester and Hainesport closed that day. The schools closed for lack of students, and people battened down the hatches and tried to wait the monster out. But interestingly enough, besides a few more minor sightings, the creature seemed to vanish, or it went back into the Pine Barrens. What had caused this creature to venture out and terrify the people in the city? Did the creature even exist? Was it mass hysteria? What was it? Now, while the entire Delaware Valley was left to ponder this question, there were scammers and hucksters that saw dollar signs to be made out of this. 2 of these hucksters were Jacob F. Hope and Norman Jeffries. They decided that they would seize the opportunity of such a mass sighting and decided they were going to make a little bit of money off of it. Now, Hope was an animal trainer, and Jeffries was a publicist for the local dime museum in Philadelphia. They put their heads together and they came up with a plan to capitalize on the devil sightings. So they concocted a story and put out ads where they said that Hope had a creature in his possession. The creature was not the Jersey Devil. It was a rare Australian vampire, and it had escaped. What people were seeing...
Wait. He had an Australian vampire?
That's what he said.
Bat.
He said he had an Australian vampire. It was the rare Australian vampire is what he said. And it had escaped.
Bullshit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're dime store museum people. They're trying to drum up business.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what the dime store museums are.
Dime museums, yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty much hoax museums where, you know, that P.T. Barnum spinoff later on, you know, they had all of that weird kind of stuff you'd see in Oddity and Curiosity.
Like Fish Girl, like Fish Girl.
Yeah, the
mermaid.
Mermaid and
all
kind of
that stuff.
The Dog Face Boy. And, yeah.
You know, or Bat Boy.
So, I love Bat Boy.
There you go.
Me too. So what people were seeing was not the Jersey Devil, but was Hope's escaped animal. Hope also stated that it was carnivorous and had a huge appetite, and he offered a reward if it were captured. Now, this is where Jeffries comes into the scam, because to keep up the ruse, Jeffries drove to the Tenderloin district and rented a kangaroo. Jeffries fashioned a kangaroo with bat wings and painted stripes on it. He then hired 20 guys dressed like farmers and townspeople, giving them pitchforks and nets, and drove the actors and the kangaroo to the Huntington Park in Philadelphia. And there he staged an altercation with the farmers and the quote-unquote Jersey Devil.
This poor kangaroo.
These farmers...
The kangaroo's like, fuck, man, let me go back to Australia. What the fuck can I do to get sent
Where
here?
do you get a kangaroo?
He rented it, apparently, from the Tenderloin district.
Asking for a friend. I'd like to know where you...
I'd like to know where to get a kangaroo.
You can find the Tenderloin district somewhere, wherever the hell that is, and rent it there.
Okay, all right.
Now, the farmers and townspeople cornered the devil in the park and captured it with a net and took it over to what was it? Took it over to the Dime Store Museum guy. Well, I'm blanking on his name. And
over to Hope?
Jeffries. It was Jeffries, yes. Took it over to Jeffries. And Jeffries told people that you could come to the dime store and see the captured beast. So people started lining up to come to the dime store to see exactly what it was that they caught.
The fake-winged kangaroo. Yeah,
yes, the fake-winged kangaroo. Now, having caused a ruckus and proclaiming the capture of the beast, Jeffries began charging money at the museum for people to come and see it. He set up a large stage with old gnawed bones on the floor, and then placed the doctored kangaroo onto the stage. When the audience came into the room, the curtain would rise and they could stare at the oddity while it was up there. But the kangaroo didn't always feel like performing. So
kangaroo had an attitude.
Yes, it did. So Jeffrey stationed a boy with a stick with a nail nailed into the end of it at the back of the stage. And when the audience came in, the curtain would rise and the boy would poke the poor beleaguered animal, and the kangaroo would begin to thrash about, just long enough for the audience to catch a glimpse of the fierce animal in action. Then the curtain would fall and leave them wanting more. Now, while sightings of this creature and the generated hysteria around such a thing may account for some of the sightings in the Delaware Valley, it does not account for them all. Too many people saw something for it to have been nothing, and for it to have been a doctored kangaroo. So the question is, what is the Jersey Devil? And that question still remains. But to explore what the Jersey Devil is and what people had seen, we first have to go way back to the beginning and dispel the legend of the Jersey Devil itself. So the legend started with Mother Leeds and her devil child, but maybe that part of the legend was politically motivated. And it starts with the patriarch of the Leeds family, Daniel Leeds. Now, Daniel Leeds came to America in 1677. He settled at the mouth of the Delaware River in what would later be called Leeds Point. And Daniel was a Quaker. He was also a writer and published many pamphlets and almanacs. Now, these pamphlets and almanacs were a very popular means of sharing information and getting things around to people during the colonial times in America.
Mm-hmm.
And while Daniel's almanacs were very popular, his were a bit different because while being a Quaker, Daniel was also into the occult. And he heavily favored astrology in his almanacs.
Oh, are Quakers allowed to do that?
Technically, no.
I didn't think so.
So the Quakers in the area took umbrage with Daniel's almanac. They viewed astrology and anything related to the occult as witchcraft. So they accused Daniel's family of practicing witchcraft, even though there was no evidence they had ever practiced, period. Now, Leeds was floored by their reaction and their accusations. He knew several Quakers from the accusing party that were also into the occult. Although they never would admit it, they read his almanac and thoroughly enjoyed it. And several of these accusers were Daniel's friends. They were all hypocrites, and instead of embracing Daniel's work, they shunned him and made him a pariah in the community. So Daniel decided to get even. He began publishing anti-Quaker literature, and just to get back at his former friends and his former religion. The most popular being A Trumpet Sounded in the Wilderness in 1701. In it, he wrote about Quakers' salacious practices, talking about who was sleeping with who and who was getting drunk, and basically spilling all the beans about the Quakers in the
So
area.
he wrote a trash mag. He wrote
He
a
did.
gossip column.
He wrote a gossip rag just to get back at his former religion and friends.
Come on, dear Abby.
Now, prominent Quaker Caleb Pussy caught wind of this. You okay, Blake?
I'm sorry. What was his last name?
Pussy, Pusey. Pussy.
Sure didn't
I-
say.
Or Pusey?
Pussy or Pussy, I don't know.
I might go with Pusey just
Pusey,
just
I
because.
heard it pronounced pussy. That's what I heard it pronounced. I don't know. Anyway,
Wait, what?
that's what I heard. I heard it pronounced pussy.
God.
I'm trying to see how many times I can get him to say it, Blake.
Next.
Pussy,
Next. Next.
pussy,
Next.
pussy.
Before we get banned off the air,
The man's name, Mr. Pusey.
we're going to
So-
call him Pusey.
So he caught wind of this and was livid that Leeds had besmirched the good name of Quakerdom. So Pussy wrote a book called Daniel Leeds Justly Rebuked. Then Leeds, being more mad about the Quakers and what Pusey had published,
Thank you.
he published another book called The Rebuker Rebuke, aimed at Pusey and the Quakers who had justly rebuked him, quote unquote. These two continued to trade public barbs and continued to print trash mags about each other and continue to print books about each other and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for years. But Pusey was able to use his status and influence to convince a large part of the local population that Leeds was pure evil and consorted with Satan, actually going as far to call him, quote unquote, Satan's harbinger. So you have that piece of the puzzle. You have the Leeds family being demonized by the Quakers, saying that they consort with the devil. On top of that, you have Daniel Leeds also making political enemies and getting into political fights, because Leeds supported and counseled a very unpopular royalist governor named Lord Cornbury. Now, this did him no favors and got him into several political fights.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Political fights. Yes, we'll pause there for a second. These last names are effing horrible
I know.
at this time. What the shit? Lord Cornbury?
Lord Cornbury.
Really?
There were still lords that he went by Lord. I mean,
This was before the Revolution, so yeah,
oh,
there were still
okay.
lords. So, and I'm sure there were still lords in England. I think there's still lords in England to this day.
Yes,
I
there's still
think.
lords in England, but we're talking
Yeah.
about in the United States. But I guess it wasn't
Yeah,
USA
was-
proper. Yeah.
yeah, he was a royalist governor, and he was Lord Cornbury. Like I said, this did him no favors and got him into several political fights. But eventually, all of the fighting became tiresome, and Daniel retired in 1714. So, on top of the supernatural accusations, you've got the political accusations against him as well. So he's not a very popular figure, and the Leeds family is not a very popular family. But Daniel's son Titan stepped up and took over the family publishing business after Daniel retired in 1714. But little did Titan know that a future founding father was paying attention to the embroiled Leeds family and would soon become a thorn in Titan's side. So, taking his cues from the very popular Leeds Almanac, Ben Franklin began publishing Poor Richard's Almanac in 1732. But Ben Franklin did not believe in astrology. And being aware of the lead's fight with the church and the supernatural stigma against the family, he decided to pile on and make fun of the lead's superstitious beliefs in the first run of Poor Richards. Franklin jokingly wrote a piece that used astrology to predict when Titan Lead would die. This piece said that Titan would die on October the 17th of that year. And when October the 17th rolled around, Titan, of course, did not die. But in the next Poor Richards, Ben Franklin published a fake obituary for Titan.
Damn, that's
Ben Franklin
petty.
had a sense of humor that was really nasty.
Shit.
He was a trip, man.
That's
So
petty as fuck.
But Titan was utterly pissed about this. So in the next Leeds Almanac, he proclaimed that he wasn't dead. And he also printed that Ben Franklin was, quote, a liar and a fool. So Franklin didn't take that lying down. And in the next Poor Richards Almanac, he posted that Franklin responded that Leeds was in fact dead, and that the proclamation of him not being dead and the name calling had not come from Titan Leeds himself, but from Titan Leeds' ghost.
Ben
Oh, my
Franklin
God.
believing ghosts. That's cool.
Yes. So for years, Franklin kept up this joke, only ever responding to barbs from Titan as responding to Titan Leeds' ghost. And he did this until about 738, when Titan Leeds actually did die. And Franklin, in that next almanac, published another piece, and in it, he thanked Titan's ghost for stopping and, quote unquote, giving up the charade that it was Titan. So you've got Ben Franklin adding on to the supernatural myth that goes along with the Leeds family. And all of this got them labeled as devils. And before and during the American Revolution, there were rumors abound about this family. And it's here that we see the seeds of legend being planted, purely as a nasty rumor and a way to demonize a family of outsiders. Therefore, the Jersey Devil legend is blown out of the water, as most likely it was a rumor that got started and grew hair and then became so ingrained in people's minds that it became a fact and became a legend. Mm-hmm. So the legend is nothing more than good old-fashioned colonial slander and libel. So that's where the legend comes from. Now, we have to talk about the physical descriptions of the creature and what people may have seen ever since the 1730s.
Yeah, I was going to say, what the hell did people see? Because you have all these people who have, quote unquote, seen
Mm-hmm.
things.
Yes. So one of the possibilities that some of these people may have seen the sandhill crane. And I believe we have a picture of the sandhill crane if Brittany wants to throw that up. This bird is massive and tends to get blamed for quite a few cryptid sightings. Skeptics like to blame it for being the culprit behind the Mothman. So why not here? It's about 12 pounds, 4 feet long, and has about an 8-inch wingspan. It makes a high-pitched whooping sound and hops and makes weird movements, which, if a colonist or someone who had never encountered the bird, they could probably mistake it for something supernatural. The bird is downright scary and could be quite devilish, but it doesn't really account for some of the accounts that the devil's appearance made up for.
Yeah, that doesn't account for the hoof-shaped prints in the snow. It doesn't account for the size. Yeah, that does.
Yeah,
that only accounts for the wings and the crane legs. That's all that accounts for. It doesn't look like a head of a ram or anything like that.
No. I think maybe what McCowan saw, that he said looked eagle-like and was kind of hopping along his footpath, I think that could be what that was, but I don't know. Now, another possibility is that it's the hammerhead bat, and I think we have a picture of a hammerhead bat as well. If you look at the hammerhead bat, it looks like some of the traditional drawings of the Jersey Devil. It has
That's pretty close.
Yeah, like it has an almost uncanny resemblance, and it seems to match the descriptions of several Jersey Devil encounters. The only problem is that the hammerhead bat is native to Africa, and it requires a tropical climate to live in, of which New Jersey just doesn't have, and it requires lots of tropical fruits to survive. Also, New Jersey has none of those. Now, it's entirely possible that one could have stowed away on a ship and made its way over here, but it wouldn't survive very long and definitely wouldn't reproduce. So that kind of rules out the hammerhead bat as a possibility.
That thing ain't too cute looking.
No, it's
could
pretty.
Have escaped from the
scary.
zoo. I wonder if the zoo at that time or their animal collection
might
have had one. Because if we're saying that there was a zoo at the time, because that's how they might know what a hyena sounded like.
Oh, like Well, that was in the 1900s, but now we're talking about sightings that go all the way the hell back to
I mean, it could.
1730s.
Yeah.
I mean, they ain't gonna have a zoo back then.
But their worship's coming from Africa. I mean, so
Yeah.
So it's possible, but
is it possible? Yeah, you can't rule it out. I mean, it's possible. It definitely is.
But there wouldn't be a large population of them. It wouldn't be able to reproduce, and maybe one of the one-off sightings could have been one of those bats, but
maybe
I don't know. Now, another possibility is it could have been just mass hysteria. People snowballing on what type of other people had seen, and they convinced themselves that they saw something, and maybe didn't see anything at all. It was just they were caught up and swept up in the excitement of what was happening in the area.
They were so spooked that anything that moved in the forest they thought was this creature.
Exactly. Now, the final possibility, in my opinion, is that the Jersey Devil could have been a tulpa. So, if you've listened to the show or any other shows about the paranormal, chances are you've heard of the tulpa. And a tulpa is an entity that starts out as an idea or a concept, and through pure will or focus from one or numerous individuals, the idea becomes a sentient, tangible being. The best example of this being the Slender Man. The Slender Man technically doesn't exist, but he was created because he was created as part of an internet forum. But he became very popular and a very spooky subject across the internet. So you had him at the top of mind and numerous people thinking about him, and people were constantly thinking about the Slender Man. So then all of a sudden you had countless people begin swearing they had encounters with him or an entity like the Slender Man. And then you had people who had never heard of him but found out about him later and were absolutely dumbfounded because they had experienced that entity. Therefore, the Slender Man was created out of thought and the will of the populace, becoming a true tulpa or thought form entity. I think this may be a similar case with the Jersey Devil. So many people grew up with the legend since the 1700s. It's one of those things that permeates culture. So the Jersey Devil has always been top of mind for the residences of the Delaware Valley. They put so much energy and so much thought into something that maybe something crossed that barrier and became real, which is why I think the description of the creature is all across the board, especially during the 1909 panic. Yes, you had newspapers for mass communication, but that was about it. So people were hearing reports of strange creatures outside and in the woods, but everyone has a different idea about what a devil is and what it's supposed to look like, which is why you had so many people with different interpretations of what they saw. Some saw feathers, some saw scaly fire breathers, and others saw creatures covered in hair. So while I do think there may be something out there roaming the Pine Barrens, I think whatever it is up to interpretation. But if you roam the Pine Barrens late at night, you may come face to face with it, and you may not live to tell the tale. So, what do you guys think it is?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm gonna go ahead and roll out tulpa.
Me too.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna that one off the list. I know, but you always you love your tulpas, damn it.
I do.
Like everything's a tulpa.
Not everything.
No, I know, not everything. For me, I've got to look at around the time of whenever this was taking place. You're talking about the first, I guess, half or first third, really, even of the 1700s. You're just on the heels of Salem witch trials. I know that you say that all they had was newspapers, but that's the whole point. Because if you ever look at newspapers back then, I mean, they're printed itty bitty little. I mean, they are super freaking descriptive and very like detailed in the story and building the story and creating all of these characters and everything like that, because that is all that they have. Of course, they didn't have Facebook and cell phones and, and all that kind of shit. Absolutely. So they had to really rely on the newspaper. So this idea that the devil exists and the devil is in northeastern United States, exactly, is very real to these people because, you know, it's not like today's time when we know the outcome of what the Salem witch trials really was, but I think it was that perfect storm. It was in my opinion, it's mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Salem witch trials is a case in point of that. I mean, that is straight up just mass hysteria. Yeah. I think that you had somebody who did not like the Leeds family. They're the usual suspects. They're not well liked. They're not very popular. They've got 847 kids that she keeps spitting out. And finally, they're just like, you know what? We're just going to start this rumor about them. I mean, that's exactly how the Salem witch trial started. And I think that's this case here. This is this area's Salem witch trial. And of course, it didn't go as far, obviously. But on top of that, it just built and built and built and built. As for the different descriptions throughout time, I think that is people just building up on this legend, trying to outdo one another. You know, think of what they say. It has the body of a kangaroo, and all of a sudden, oh my God, now no, I saw it and it has long, shaggy hair. Oh no, I saw it and it has scales and it breathed fire. You know, I mean, it's like trying that one up, you know. So my opinion at the very end of all of the Jersey Devil stuff is a prime example of case of mass hysteria that involves centered around a family that is the usual suspects coming right off the heels of the Salem witch trials. And this is a perfect setup to create folklore, to create a legend, a myth, you know, things like that. So I'll go walk the Pine Barrens because I don't think it exists.
I don't think that it exists either. I think there may be something out there that isn't the Jersey Devil. It could be some creature that maybe, because there's a lot of people to this day that continue to have encounters with something out there that has scared the shit out of them. So there could be something out there, but the Jersey Devil proper, I don't think that's what it is. Like you were saying, I think that you have the folklore of the Jersey Devil that was pinned on top of a family who was not well liked. And so on top of the folklore, you have the mass hysteria event. And I think it's a lot of people freaking out for no reason.
Well, it sucked back then, let's be honest.
Just let me make it a straight sweep across the board. I absolutely think it was mass hysteria. I think that you see this and you see this and oh my God, and I see this. And I think that sometimes we all know that if you got 20 people in a room and one person says they see something, everybody's suddenly going to start looking for it. They're going to start looking to make that fit what somebody told them that they saw. And again, if everybody's saying they're Jersey Devils out there, then anything that someone sees, oh, it's the Jersey Devil, because they can't explain what they saw. So I'm kind of with you. I think there is probably a creature. There probably is. There are probably several. You're talking about forest and woods that have not hard to get into, hard to explore.
There's nothing out there.
Yeah. Could there be creatures we don't know are out there? Absolutely. Could they have all been seeing the same creature? More than likely not. The descriptions are too different. But because we have this Jersey Devil panic, I think that anything they saw that they couldn't explain, they said, oh, it's the Jersey Devil. So I think it was a hysteria. I think it was this mass panic of, oh my God, what did I see? I don't think at all that Miss White saw a fire-breathing dragon. No. I think Miss White had been having a little nip or something before she went outside to hang up her bloomers.
It's lizard people. It's lizard people. That's what it is.
So I think that I think she might have said that because she had a little too much drink and she passed out. It was the Jersey Devil, honey. It scared me. Ooh, no, I had to have some smelling salts. That's why I smell like this, baby. I'm in agreement. I think there's probably something out there. I think there's probably several somethings, but I don't think it can be contributed to one creature.
I will say, if anybody who is listening to this has had any type of experience or anything like that, then tell us about it. Let us know about it. You know, I mean, we'd love to hear it, number one, because listen, you got the three of us. We from the South. We from Texas. We all the way down in Texas. You know, the best thing we got down here is the chupacabra. Which I don't think exists either, but anyways.
Yes, he does. You shut up.
I've seen his paw though, so he's got to be real. But anyways, no.
Well, which chupacabra are you talking about? The goat sucker or the dog or the coyote with mange?
The goat sucker.
No, I just Wow, we all agreed on mass hysteria.
We did.
I think that's
Mark
the only,
it down. Mark it down.
I
this
think
day
that's
in history.
the only logical explanation for all the sightings in such a short period of time and them all being described differently. Had they all had the exact same story of what they looked like, I might be inclined to go with there's this creature go flying around. But again, I'm sure every newspaper reported something slightly different because every storyteller wants to be better than the last. They want to show you their skills. Even in the newspaper, if it's an editorial, they can say whatever they want. They're not having to report the hard news. They're saying their opinions and their comments. So I think everyone tried to one up each other. And so whatever newspaper you read, is what you thought you saw.
Well, and too, like I said, when I was doing the research on this, there were hundreds of stories of people that claim they saw something during Phenomenal Week. I mean, stories on stories on stories on stories. It's really interesting. If you want to go and find them, you can go find them and read them. It's pretty to see how newspapers worked back then too. It's really interesting to read, but I mean, mass hysteria all the way around.
And a lot of newspapers had newspaper wars. Where if just like you said with Poor Richard's Almanac and then the Leeds Almanac, they were one-upping each other, and sometimes it became a war of words, and you'd have to buy one paper to see what they said about the other paper, then you'd have to see what the other paper's response was, and that was a way that a lot of newspapers got sold, was trading trash talk.
Well, too, and I think this is also around the time of yellow journalism, where they were just making up stories to see who could the most salacious stories and the craziest stuff to see who could get the most readers.
Sell the most papers. That's right. It was a money grab, not necessarily a legitimate news outlet.
Actual journalism, yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was so easy to start something like this back then, because if you really think about it, like the area and what they believed and all that, everybody back then at some point was practicing some type of witchcraft. Let's just be honest, whether that be actual white magic, folk magic, black magic. I mean, everybody was doing something back then.
Well, at least something that could get you accused of being a witch. Even if you made dolls, you could be making
or you made home remedies. They could accuse you of
alchemy or not said alchemy. No, alchemy's trying to turn metal into gold.
Lead into gold.
But whatever the herbal remedies, you could be accused of making potions.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and then you combine that mindset right there, that also this life sucks, everything's hard. We got to go freaking work the land. That's all we got to do. They were only having children back then as basically a workforce. Let's be honest. That's why Miss Leeds popped out 13 of them. They had land that they had to work. So entertainment at the same time. So apothecary. That's it. I couldn't think of it either.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. I was in my head, I was trying to run through words and I was like, what is that word? Thanks, Bill.
I'm glad somebody smarter than us is listening.
So you have that whole combination happening. And I think right on the heels of one of the biggest mass hysteria moments in the United States history, it is the perfect storm that this creature comes to life. And it has just maintained throughout all the years.
Well,
Absolutely.
and even if you went out and you planted your fields and you bent down on your hands and knees to say a prayer to the Lord above to please bless me with good crops, somebody could say you were saying a spell over your, if you had a good year. Oh, he said a spell over his crops. There were so many things that could get you in hot water or doing something.
Just making political enemies, making enemies of the church, from
having
doing
a land dispute could get you accused of being someone that was an enemy of the church. So I think that gosh, how did we all manage to agree on this one? We've got to stop doing that.
Well, I think it's easy because we just kind of we know that what's the easiest target to pin anything on? The devil. Everybody's afraid of him. Nobody likes him. So I mean, of course, okay, we're gonna.
I ain't afraid of him.
We're gonna, conjure up the devil.
That, and then let's pin it on the group of outsiders in town, the one family that nobody likes. Let's also attach
the
them
usual suspects. Exactly, absolutely. So, mass hysteria all the way around. Wow.
We got to quit agreeing like this. We got to quit agreeing like this.
This ain't fun when we're not screaming at each other, and we don't really. Scream.
Maybe next week.
Watch out, Bill.
Well, I will say I watched a documentary where they had a priest, and this priest, I had to roll my eyes so many times. He was like, "Oh, it's demonic. It's totally demonic. It was summoned here." And I was like, and he goes out into the woods to try to find the Jersey Devil, and he's like, "I can feel it out here. It's a demonic." I was like, "Okay, all right there."
Oh my.
All right,
my thoughts on things like that.
I was like, yes, the totally made up legend.
But no one else can. Yeah, sure, right.
Yeah.
God. It's like, come on, man. It was tough to get through that documentary. And I say documentary very loosely.
Yeah. Well,
I can imagine.
Gosh. If we all agree we have nothing to fight about, I guess, Blake, you ought to tell them
you
everything they need to know.
Yeah, we got a lot of announcements we got to make just really quick.
Cool things.
Yes. Absolutely. So first and foremost, a couple of things we just want to remind y'all. Shout out to Nick Sarlo and Nick Simons that we had on a couple of weeks ago, who are going to be doing Spirits in the Spring. They're coming up April the 22nd at Broadhead Manor in Broadhead, Wisconsin. That one is a charity Paracon. If you would like to attend, you can do a food donation for $10 or $20 without your food donation. Y'all, they're going to have an amazing lineup of speakers. They're going to be playing games and having fun. They've got like something planned every hour on the hour with a ghost hunt later on that night at Broadhead Manor. So
That's
y'all
a
go
separate
check.
ticket.
That is a separate ticket. So
But
y'all,
by the way, you know what? It's for charity. Take your $20 and your food donation. Be a
Worth
good
every bit
person.
of
It
it.
goes for a good cause.
absolutely. And then after that, we've also got May the 12th and 13th. If y'all would like to join us, we are going to be speaking at the West Tex Paracon, in Ballinger, Texas. They're going to have another great list of speakers and everything. They had the ability to investigate both the Old Park Hotel and the Old Runnels County Jail as well. You can go to find them on Facebook at the 2023 West Tex Paracon. That is their Facebook page name, and you can find the website to purchase your tickets. Also, for another one in July, if you would like to follow us on up to Kansas City, we are going to be speaking at MetaCon. You can come join us up there. They are also going to have wonderful speakers as well. We will be one of them, as well as 30,000 square feet of shopping fun and healing, as they say. I can't wait to figure out what that's about. So,
Well, last time we went to a Paracon that had healing, I ended up with needles in my back. So,
and I have the pictures to prove it.
Yes, you do.
I got the pictures to prove it. I sure do.
I need some good old acupuncture. That'd be a lot of fun.
So we will make sure we're going to share all these links and do the promotions for these Paracons tomorrow. Make it easy for you to find, so you don't have to go search them down if you don't want to. We'll pop it all up in a post for you tomorrow. On top of that, we have got tickets that are on sale. We have got a 2-night investigation at the Old Park Hotel. If you would like to join us, that is going to be October 6th and 7th. Yes, our first one for April the 14th through the 16th is already sold out.
It's already sold out.
Yep.
So we don't have tickets to that, but we have another opportunity in October, and we are going to be opening up the jail. So you will be getting the same exact place, same exact price, except one more location that night. So whatever social media channel you are watching us on, make sure that you following us across the board. We got a lot of fun stuff that's coming out. We are not just on the channel that you're watching on. Go to the About Me section of the bio sections, or find our link tree link in the descriptions of the episodes. Click on that. Be taken anywhere that you want to go, including our Patreon, which is only $5 a month. And for signing up, you get, I believe it's just under 100 additional goofy ass, stupid
get more of them.
videos, pre and post broadcast, which consists of the first 30 minutes prior to the broadcast and 30 minutes after the broadcast. You're going to be getting that as well. And yeah, you'll get up-to-date information, dates, times, and locations on where we'll be, what we'll be doing. We reveal everything on Patreon just so that you know. And as always,
who has naked pictures?
You
Sweet
said
Melissa,
you wouldn't
your
tell.
son is
Damn.
naughty.
Damn it.
and as always, any questions, comments, or stories you'd like to share, those can be submitted to us at the evppod@gmail.com. That's THEEVPPOD@gmail.com.
Like, share, and subscribe. And by the way, before we sign off, there was a little thing that dropped on Friday
Yes.
on scarenetwork.tv. And it is the documentary Old Park that was produced by Billy Lewis. And it features Eric Connor from Epic Paranormal and yours truly and the rest of the people on this screen. Everything vaguely paranormal. I hope you go and watch it. And please, if you watch it, tell us what you think. We were very excited. We were very proud of it. And we hope you like it too. So scarenetwork.tv. Go get the subscription, get the app, download it wherever, and go watch it and let us know what you think.
Check us out and tell us what you think. Like Shelly said. So, for my partners in the paranormal, Mrs. Shelly Pruitt, Miss Shelly Pruitt,
I'm not,
and
no ring.
Miss Shelly Pruitt, Mr. Blake Smith,
No, I'm just kidding.
And this has been Everything Paranormal. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Everything vaguely paranormal. Yes, it was.
That's what I said.
Bye, y'all.
We are off the chain.